Hi, this is Mike Bauer from Disciple Together Church, and today I'm going into part 6, why I believe Jesus rose from the dead. And the question is, did an impostor take his place? Was someone that resembled him or looked like him take his place? And we talked about the possible explanations that we've covered already, that miracles just can't happen, that the story changed over time, that the witnesses lied, and that Jesus just passed out or he just swooned. And so you can reference the earlier videos that I did on those explanations. And I've said that I don't think those are possible explanations. Now we're going to talk about an imposter took his place. And one of the ideas where this comes from is from the Quran. And the Quran says something similar to this. It says, in 157 through 158, it says, "And for their saying, indeed, we have killed the Messiah, Jesus, the son of Mary, the messenger of Allah. And they did not kill him, nor did they crucify him, but another was made to resemble him to them. And indeed, those who differ over it are in doubt about it. They have no knowledge of it except the following of assumption. And they did not kill him for certain. Rather, Allah raised him to himself, and ever is Allah exalted in might and wise." And so you see here that the idea that is said in the Quran that Muhammad is saying is that he didn't actually die, that Jesus didn't die on the cross, he wasn't crucified, and someone was made to resemble him. Now, there are different ideas in Islam who this is. Some say that it's Peter, some say that it's Judas, some say that it's Simon of Cyrene or a bystander or something like that that was made to resemble him. Now, there are different ideas as far as, is this Allah doing this? Is this something else? So there's a lot of uncertainty there, but the main idea is that no, he didn't die on the cross. It wasn't Jesus, it was someone else that died on the cross, not Jesus himself. Now, what I would say to this is, the Quran was written some 600 years later, and this is not an eyewitness account. So this is what Muhammad is saying, and so why would I believe an account some 600 years later over an eyewitness account? Now, of course, the response to that is that it'll say that the New Testament was changed, is what is said by many in Islam. The New Testament was changed and was corrupted over time. Well, that was something we're going to talk about here in a second. But first, why would Allah do this? It seems confusing, at least, and deceptive at worst. That someone was made to resemble him, and then he was assumed up into heaven. So if God assumed him up into heaven, then the apostles and disciples, it's like they're deceived. Like they had to come to think that was true because Jesus was taken up into heaven. And so it's very, very odd, I think, what is being said here. And I would ask too, where's the manuscript evidence of the change in the New Testament? Okay, well, we can't go into that now, but I would like to see the evidence of it changing. Actually, I think it's quite the contrary. We have quite good evidence of the manuscripts remaining the same. We have, over 5,000 manuscripts in Greek, and the copies of the New Testament. We have very early copies of the New Testament. And when you take that and you pair it with the early church fathers who were writing and quoting the New Testament, you have all their quotes in the New Testament, and then you compare and you corroborate those two, you can see that the whole idea of Jesus himself dying on the cross and rising from the dead is consistent between the New Testament itself and the early church fathers, so that there was no change in the story, and that there was not an impostor that was made to take his place, or someone that looked like him. And then I would think about this too, is like, how does this explain the appearances that the apostles saw Jesus? How did they see Jesus if an impostor was made to look like him and he was assumed up into heaven? They saw him do miracles. They saw him appear into a room, with the doors locked. They saw him ascend into heaven. And so how does this fit with the idea that an impostor was made to look like him and then he was assumed up into heaven? And so it definitely is contradictory to the story that we have of the eyewitnesses. Now remember, I talked about earlier that the timing of this goes all the way back to a few years from Christ in 1 Corinthians 15, 3 through 8, as we looked at that passage earlier. That saying goes back to between 2 to 3 to 8 years of Christ. And so that is, I think, strong evidence that the story hasn't changed and that an impostor didn't take his place. And so that's why I would say for this one, no. That does not seem to make sense that an impostor took his place. So next time we're going to talk about hallucinations. Is it possible that the disciples hallucinated? The witnesses just hallucinated and they dreamed this up because they wanted to? And so that's what I'll do in the next video. So good seeing you. Well, actually you seeing me. And we'll look forward to the next video. Have a great day.